news that came down today, and it could be the precursor for another announcement later on. But the NJSIA today basically suggesting that, not basically suggesting, the dates have now been pushed back for high school sports, including high school football. You will not see any sports you'll see some girls tennis late September, but no football until October, Mike. And I don't know, how sure are you that there won't be another announcement essentially changing that as well?
Well, I'm not sure of anything these days, but, I've always been, I guess the phrase would be cautiously optimistic. I think if kids are back in school, which I think they're going to be in some form, I think there's going to be some form of high school sports this fall. Now, how that looks or what, that means, who knows? But I think it's important for the overall, health of high school sports to not cancel back-to-back seasons. I just think that would be something that high school sports would have trouble coming back from.
You wrote a while back about flipping the seasons. Is that something that's a possibility if they can't kick off in October still? Is that something that was discussed in this? I mean, I know that, the Ivy League got rid of fall altogether. There was some talk that they might play football in the spring, but are there other options on the table, or are they pretty hell-bent on starting in October?
I think right now they're hell-bent on starting in October with the traditional fall sports. I think people raised some issues about flipping to the spring. I think, playing football in the spring and then coming back with another football season in the fall, a couple-month break there, people were worried about that. I think some of the spring season coaches were worried about, hey, we just lost our spring season a couple months ago. What happens if something happens and we are scheduled to play this fall and we lose that season too? And essentially we're losing back-to-back seasons. So I think that played a role in that. But as of right now, it's the traditional, it's girls tennis on September 28th, the other fall sports, soccer, field hockey, gymnastics, girls volleyball on October 1st, and football for what appears to be 6 regular season games and 2 playoff weekends starting on October 2nd.
Right, and then that could go all the way up. Now, the way that it was worded, are they saying you can play a Thanksgiving game if you want to?
Yes, if you want to play on Thanksgiving, you can play on Thanksgiving. All other competitions have to end by November 22nd, but I believe Thanksgiving is the 26th. If you're playing a Thanksgiving football game and you want to play a Thanksgiving football game, you can play it on November 26th. And they also left open the possibility, and it'll be interesting to see, Colleen McGuire, the chief operating officer of the NJSIAA, said that the football playoff format has not been determined yet. So, and they left the possibility open, even in football, to say if you do not choose to participate in the football playoffs, you can still play football games on the weekends of the playoffs. So if you take your 6 regular season games, then you don't participate in the playoffs, you can play 2 more games, and then you can play a Thanksgiving game. There is a possibility that you could play 9 football playoff games this season, or 9 football games rather this season.
One of the reasons why pro sports got off is because of the testing available. How do you think that the testing will go for these high schools?
Well, I don't think high schools are going to really test at all. I mean, I don't see, are they going to test every kid that walks in the door? I don't think they're going to do it. We haven't really seen any plans out yet for how high schools are going to monitor the day-to-day life of the average student walking in the door. But I would think testing, 2,000 students at a large South Jersey high school twice a day or 3 times a week is something that's not going to happen and is cost prohibitive for a lot of school districts. So I think schools are going to be doing things like taking temperatures before practice, maybe taking temperatures before games, maybe asking you, I went to get my hair cut the other day. They asked me a bunch of questions. Have you had these symptoms? Have you had that symptoms? And then they took your temperature. It was normal, got a haircut. I think, high school sports would probably be the same way. I don't think it's going to be a situation like you see with the Phillies where you're being tested, 2, 3, or every other day or things like that.
Now, July 13th, Mike, was supposed to be when they were allowed to work out. Then there was the week 0 eliminated, and that was going to just basically start. So where is that July 13th which is a couple days from now, is that still in play? Where does that phase one of the workouts now stand?
Right, that's still on. So what you can do is, Monday you can start workouts, which is phase one workouts, which basically last 90 minutes, no contact. Guidelines for phase two were supposed to be coming later today, but basically what a team is going to be able to do is work out, if they want, from July 13th to August 28th. Once August 28th comes, everything shuts down until September 14th, when you can actually begin fall practices. And during that gap, that gap to sort of let kids get back to school, let school sort of get their feet under them before sports begins, teams can hold, virtual meetings and stuff like that. But you can work out in the summer right now until August 28th, and then there's a break until September 14th when practices begin for the start of the season. And as you alluded to already, you see a lot of schools. It'll be interesting to see now with the regular season pushed back till October 1st, will even more schools decide to say, hey, we're not going to start on Monday. The Cape Atlantic League and most of their schools have decided they're not going to start summer workouts until the 27th, which is 2 weeks from now.
All right. So for people who might be listening and are saying, why is high school different from what's going on? My kids, I coached a baseball game on Tuesday night. There are games going on all over the place. Why is high school different and not able to play when, say, an AAU team or a rec league team can play baseball or soccer in the summer right now?
Yeah, I wrote about that today in my column. I think that's an excellent question. I think what the NCAA will tell you is that they are tied to the reopening of schools, and they are tied to the policies of the school district. So if school doesn't reopen, they can't play. But I think it's a conflicting message for athletes around the state. As you said, I drove past a soccer field the other day, saw parking lots filled, 200 parents on the sidelines, 4 games being played on the fields. You can play for your club soccer team today, tomorrow, this weekend, but Monday, if your school is even having phase one of your workouts, it's got to be a no-contact social distance workout for 90 minutes. So it is a conflicting message for high school sports, and I think it's just going to sort of sharpen, the conflict between club sports and high school sports as we go forward.
Right. So the state of New Jersey is essentially saying kids can play soccer and baseball, but it's the NJSIAA that is essentially saying that you cannot play high school sports, correct?
That is correct. And like you said, you can play right now legally in the state of New Jersey. There's no indoor dining, but you can play soccer, outdoor basketball, and baseball and softball. But the NCAA is walking it slow, and it's because they're connected to the schools and the school policies for return and things like that. So, again, like you said, it is a conflict. If you're an athlete in New Jersey, there's a possibility you could play a soccer or a baseball game or a softball game on Sunday, and then Monday, if your school is even having a virtual one of these phase one workouts, it's a no contact, 90-minute just conditioning thing. So there is, athletes are getting 2 different messages from 2 different sources.
So what could this possibly mean? Like, the one sport that I don't see being affected would be football. You can't just go play for a football team somewhere, but could you see what the future of high school sports could be affected by potentially not playing or getting pushed back? Is there some fear that, kids who are playing club soccer will say, I don't need to play high school soccer anymore, and that collapses?
Well, I think, I don't think high school sports are going to disappear, but I think there's a very real possibility. It'll be up to each league to decide what type of schedule you're going to play. So maybe, you have basically a 6-week kind of regular season here. Who knows? Maybe your soccer team is just going to play 6 games. Maybe they're going to play once a week. Who knows? Maybe they'll play twice a week. Maybe they'll play 12 games. Well, you could have a club team come to a kid and say, don't waste your time with the school team this year. Come play with us. We're playing, 35 games from August 1st to October. We're going to this tournament. We're playing 4 games on a weekend. This will offer you a better chance to be seen by recruiters. We're practicing more. Who knows how many of these schools are going to allow teams to practice? They're going to practice every day. Who knows? So I think there's a definite situation. And then once you go away from something, do you automatically come back? That's the question. Once you go away from high school sports, does that athlete automatically return next fall? Let's say if things are quote unquote back to normal, or do they find the club team might be better for them? So I think that conflict is definitely there more than ever, basically.
Mike McGary from the Press of Atlantic City. How much too could this be impacted on how each district decides on how they're going to let kids back? I mean, Mainland could have classes Mondays and Wednesdays, and you can take classes from home on Tuesdays. I mean, an EHT might say, nope, we're going to go off. I mean, does that have an impact?
Oh, that has everything to do with it. Right now, this is just the framework that the NCAA put out today. But it's going to be up to each individual school and school district to determine what's best for them and with their league and stuff like that.
So there's a possibility, Mike, then that some schools could be back and say, we're going to play sports, and others might say, we're not back yet, and we're not going to participate.
Right. I mean, you saw it this week with the Cape Atlantic League deciding that we're going to wait 2 weeks till we begin our summer workouts. The NCAA said you can begin summer workouts on Monday. The Cape Atlantic League said, hey, we're not ready. We recommend that you start on the 27th. I don't want to suggest. I'm pretty sure that every school is going to figure out a way. I got to believe that every school has got to figure out a way to play sports, or every league's going to figure out a way to play in the state. But there's going to be no uniformity like we have in normal years, where every basketball team can play 26 games and stuff like that. I think you'll see some areas of the state play 12 games. I think some will play 10, some will play 6. I mean, it'll be, it's almost up to what every school district feels comfortable or feel what they can safely do with their student athletes, basically.
I know there hasn't been any guidelines or outlines for this yet, but if this gets pushed back to October, like they're saying, and then ending, it doesn't seem that it would affect basketball or the winter seasons, correct?
Right. I mean, right now there's no guidelines for that, but the winter season usually starts around December 15th. So this would end on November 22nd. And basically, the NCAA, as you see with a lot of colleges, they want to make a point of ending before the Thanksgiving break. And I guess, people, you see the same theory with colleges. They don't want people traveling maybe for the holidays, maybe being exposed to the virus, coming back to school, and, spreading the virus. So they want all athletics done before that Thanksgiving break. So, you don't have people traveling away for the weekend and coming back and spreading the virus, to teammates or in the competition the following week. So that's the theory behind that. But it does open up, December 15th. But I think, sitting here right now, I think any of us, indoor sports at this time, basketball, wrestling, I mean, that kind of boggles the mind right now.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would almost see a scenario like girls' tennis or any tennis, it seems that, or cross country, that you could probably start that on time. I don't know, why they would need to push those back. I mean, I guess they've maybe done some studies or research, but I don't know why they wouldn't just say, we could start girls' tennis on time, we could start cross country on time. But these other sports where there's a lot of physicality, different situation. Now, soccer is interesting because the MLS is playing. You've got, obviously, Premier League and other soccer leagues playing. So you might be a high school soccer player and say, why can't we start soccer? I mean, football seems to be the one that is way up in the air right now.
Yeah, football is obviously, I took football like if you compare this to a mountain climber, bringing back football is like climbing Mount Everest on your first mountain climb, basically. It's the toughest sport to come back, and you're trying to bring that back first. That's why, as you mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I wrote, hey, why don't they start that sport in the spring?
Yeah.
Bring back the other sports. Watch what the NFL does. Watch what college football does. Apply the lessons learned there, and then start football in the spring. I mean, football is tough. It's the Mount Everest of trying to bring back sports, and they're trying to bring back that first. As far as every sport starting around the same time, I think they want to give the schools uniformity, and I think they also want to give the schools 2 weeks to just sort of get used to the normal day-to-day life of, having kids in the building, getting kids to school. What's lunch going to look like? Let schools adjust to that and not have the added worry of what sports is going to look like after school, basically.
I don't know if you saw Tom Williams' idea, but, basically don't play anything until December 26th with the holiday basketball tournament. So essentially not until next year, and just play 3 abbreviated winter, play the fall in, what do you have, March the 3rd through April 17th, and then you pick up the spring season after that in May the 5th.
Yeah, I love Tom, but I kind of disagree with him right there. I just think losing back-to-back seasons, losing the spring season and then losing the fall season, even if you're going to play an abbreviated one in the spring, I just think high schools having no sports from September to December would be devastating. And I think, I go back to what I wrote today, and the first thought that popped into my head when I drove past that crowded field the other day. People want to play sports. They're playing them now. And if high schools don't provide sports in September, October, November, the void will be filled. And, it's like a restaurant. You might eat at a restaurant every day. It closes. You go to another restaurant. That other restaurant reopens. You might not go back because you like the food better over here. So, I just think it would be devastating for high school sports if they, basically went 10 months or 9 months without a competition.
All right. With that said, I know you have an article about JT Realmuto and the Phillies at the Press of Atlantic City. Let me get your thought. Are you confident about baseball then and them getting off the ground? And we're talking about high school sports and them trying to figure it out. You got pro sports who are testing all the time. Do you feel better? Do you feel confident that Major League Baseball will get off the ground?
Yeah, I am. I'm cautiously optimistic, cautiously confident that the pro sports will start and will power through. Anything other than something really catastrophic happening. And what that is, I don't know what that is. I think we'll all recognize it when it happens. It could be, everybody wants to know what number of tests might cause pro sports to shut down. I don't know if it's 10 tests, 20 positive tests, 30 positive tests. It might just be one positive test of an athlete who gets really, really sick. That might do it. But I think barring anything catastrophic, I think pro sports, baseball, basketball, hockey, even football finds a way to play and get through this season.
All right, Mike McGary from the Press of Atlantic City. Check out the latest on when all the sports will start. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, Mike, take care, pal.
All right, appreciate it, Mike. See you guys down the road.
Yeah, man.